Hi everyone, what we're going to do next is look at customer personas. But before we actually get there, we're actually going to look at some old school marketing approaches around customers and markets. These are kind of critical because there are lots of people that still use this kind of language around customers and target segments. So if you can see this image here, it's got potential market, available market, target market, and penetrated market. So the penetrated market is the one that you've already managed to connect with. The target market is your overall market. Available market is market that you have scope to grow into, including a much broader potential market. So I've got a question for you. So what would you think would be a better choice for the startup, right? You've got option one. Option one is a niche approach towards markets, right? So you want something that's very small and very manageable. Or do you go option B, go big or go home, like a really broad market? I'll let you think about it for a minute. Come to some conclusions yet? So, who says A? The small, petit, bijou market. See, not a lot of people think of the small market as a good idea, right? Because if you go for the option B, the second market, go big or go home market, you've got a big market, which means big capacity to create sales, and as a result of being able to generate a lot of sales, you get to generate a lot of profit, and then you're skyrocketing, right? But actually, the research suggests that for some firms, small is better. And the reason why they suggest that is because, remember before when I was talking to you guys about sometimes you just don't have all the resources or the skills to need to actually get up and running. If you are having troubles with basic resources and skills, if you don't know exactly what you're doing when you're starting your firm, that's probably not a good idea to try and attract a big market. So say, for example, you did go to the big market and you were very successful. The problem would be is that you don't actually have the capacity, right? You don't have the resources or skills to actually produce more product than just a small amount. And you know, I know of firms which have been very strategic around the ways that they grow their firm, right? So a small startup with a very limited production run, you know, despite the fact there's lots of interest, they'll say, no, our production capacity suggests we can only make 5 of these types of products a year. So we'll put you on a wait list, but we can't really help you at the moment. And that's really important to manage, because if you can't produce it and you say yes, you're disappointing potential customers, and then that's kind of a disaster long term. So sometimes small is beautiful, and sometimes go big or go home is beautiful too, depending on who you are, the resources you have, and your prior experience around what you're trying to create. Another key element around markets is this notion of segmentation. Visser talked around different types of approaches around segmentation, and this is all old school marketing, right? So say you've got a potential market and you're trying to figure out the ways that you might be able to segment. It's really important to understand this because say, for example, older people who are grey nomads, right? They're traveling around Australia and they're leaving those random messages on their Facebook feeds around where they are or where they're going, and it's all very fun and vicarious, right? They have a specific set of needs, right? And you think around, well, what kinds of needs might they have? Okay, got it, right? And then you've got, say, parents with young children or babies. Now, babies have like completely different needs to these grey nomads. So it's kind of important to understand who you're trying to attract. So the ways that you can segment your market is through geographic location. So it might be by country or by climate or by population or by city area. It could also be around, say, demographic information, which is kind of what I was talking to you about just now, right? Age or gender or family size or, nationality. It could be by psychographics. That might be lifestyle or activities, interests or opinions. So different types of people have different kinds of psychographic information, or it could be around behavioral, right? So it might be around usage. Do you want to attract high usage clients or low usage clients? It depends on what you're offering, right? So for your first assessment, who's your customer? What do they look like? How would you segment that market using old school approaches? These days, it's more around real people, right? So trying to move from this bullet point approach of we're trying to target 34 to 55-year-old males who are high net worth individuals that live in the inner city apartments in Brisbane, and just kind of having these bullet points to try to develop a picture of a customer persona. And we'll be talking about that next. So, customer personas. What is a persona? It's basically a composite sketch of a key segment of your audience. For most startups, you need a persona to help deliver solutions that will be most relevant and useful to your audience. So if you don't kind of sketch out who you're trying to attract, that's a problem, because you might actually develop products or services that just completely disconnect from their needs. So the basics of a customer persona are sort of facts and demographics and a name, the needs and goals and values of this individual, behaviors, where they spend their time, and an image. So here's a really basic persona, right? It's still kind of, for me, it's still kind of a bit bullet pointy, right? There's lots of bullet points. This might be a better example. There's Tommy Technology. This is kind of good, and it's good for a whole range of reasons, right? It does have the background and demographics, but it also kind of has these common objections and biggest fears, which might be the source of your solutions, right? To try and figure out the ways that these things might feed into the ways that you design your products and services. It's good to understand like hobbies and interests, so you get a much fuller picture of who you're trying to attract versus like a bullet point segmentation approach. Thanks, everyone.